It's Wednesday, the 25th of January, 2023. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's jump into story number 1. Business confidence picked up at the end of last year, but business conditions slowed, according to the highly regarded NAB survey, and that critically has implications for interest rates.
Yes, and the survey also showed, promisingly, further easing in cost and price pressures. The last few surveys have told a story which isn't a bad one for the economy. Growth has slowed since the middle of last year, but not collapsed. Profitability is slowing, as are forward orders and employment, and still the full impact of interest rates haven't kicked in. Basically, the NAB survey is showing a decline in cost and price pressures. Other surveys are doing something similar. What's it mean? Well, inflation has probably peaked. In fact, the data says it has peaked. Today, we get the Consumer Price Index figures out of the Bureau of Statistics. That's for the December quarter. The Reserve Bank thinks they'll come in at about 8%. It's very possible they'll be less than that. Now, the Reserve Bank has been making its decisions on interest rates based on its forecast of inflation. If that forecast is wrong, inflation is lower, that means we might not see as many interest rate increases in the future. In fact, Michael, we might even see a pause in interest rates. There's certainly ample evidence around the place. We've seen retailers like Super Retail Group say that supply chain pressures have eased. In the US, price pressures have certainly come off. Plenty riding on today's inflation figure, Michael.
Yeah, there sure is. Story number 2, Sean, house prices, one of my favourite topics. They continued to fall at the end of last year, but at least the pace of the decline has eased, according to a new report from Domain.
House prices across the combined capitals are 66,000 below the March 2022 peak. Units are off 27,000. Of course, that's combined capital, so there's big differences between cities like Sydney and Adelaide, for example. House prices across combined capitals are still 25% higher than pre-pandemic. Unit prices are up 5%. Need to keep that context around it. For all of 2022, both Sydney and Canberra recorded their steepest decline ever. Adelaide is the only capital city market to have a new record high house and unit price last year. Now, in Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide and Darwin, unit prices are outperforming homes, albeit prices are still falling. But in Canberra and Melbourne, unit prices are tumbling at their fastest pace ever.
Okay, on to story number 3. And Sean, I know you love your fashion, and department store Myer has posted its strongest sales in nearly 20 years, with shoppers spending up on fashion, footwear and accessories, triggering a 5% jump in its share price.
That's right. For the 5 months to the end of last year, sales are up 25%. Profit was also higher. Chief Executive John King was cautious about the broader economy thanks to rate rises and the cost of living pressures, but he thinks the department store can keep up the momentum. He said people, they're going out again. They want to buy clothing, footwear to look good, and they're visiting stores with online sales off nearly 10%. Now, last week, David Jones said sales were up more than 2%. One thing I did note from the Myer result yesterday, Michael, sales of coffee machines have surged.
Good. Now you're speaking my language, Sean.
Absolutely.
Now, on to story number 4, and it's a pretty significant day today, Sean, because it marks the 3rd anniversary of the COVID outbreak. The first case was diagnosed on the 25th of January 2020, and hasn't the world changed a bit since then?
It sure has. It's estimated that 70% of the population has been infected, which is a good thing because that builds a wall of immunity which protects people. New, better vaccines are still being developed, and there's obviously a chance that new strains will become more transmissible and even more severe. Now, those at risk, elderly, the aged, and those with long COVID still need plenty of attention. We've got to keep in mind the 18,000 people who have died directly from COVID-19. Most of those actually died in 2022. But generally, we've all gotten back to business as usual, in line with most other Western countries. The exception, of course, is China, which has had more than 1 billion cases since late last year.
All right, last story. Story number 5. I don't know what to make of this one, Sean. It is all about Elon Musk, and his company Twitter is being sued by the Crown Estate, so think King Charles, for allegedly failing to pay the rent on its London headquarters.
Yes, the estate, which belongs to the King, filed a claim against Twitter and its UK subsidiary in the High Court, according to a report in the Telegraph of London. The Crown Estate administers thousands of acres of Crown-owned land across the UK, including 930,000 square metres of property in central London. Now, earlier this month, staff at Twitter's Singapore office were ordered to work from home after the company reportedly failed to pay its rent there on time. All Twitter signs and logos have been removed from its London headquarters in Eyre Street and Piccadilly Circus, but a member of staff said the company still had a presence there.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Wednesday, the 25th of January, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast, and if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to check out our new podcast, How Do They Afford That?, which is out every Wednesday. Today's episode is all about emergency money, how much cash you should have set aside in case of an emergency. You find that wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.